Alright, critique time! So today I want to do it for a WAPO, because we did a map last time. We did it for the 3 stages of Payload Race Nightfall. So let's do something a little less loaded, with less to talk about. So the WAPO I'm thinking of is a Medi WAPO. Can you guess which one it is? Have your guesses, have your guesses. It's a secondary, so one of the med guns. Sort by cluster. Which one did you guess? The stock one? Because that's what we are critiquing today. So where is here? So we're critiquing the stock medic gun for the medic. Wow, it has a very long cable, right? Anyway, so as always, there's some disclaimers. I'm gonna just dive a little bit into game design, but not too in depth, and also because this is gonna focus more on the visuals. And also I'm gonna be using Feldman's method to critique this 4 steps: description, analysis, interpretation, and judgment. On the description, I describe what I see. On the analysis, I look into the elements of art. On the interpretation, I interpret the creative vision. And on the judgment step, I'm call this successful or unsuccessful art, basing myself on the principles of art. So that's basically it. And let's begin. First step, description. What do I see? It's like a fire hose, right? Basically, it's a fire hose. It has everything that you would expect. I guess maybe it's a fire hose with there's some black strappings in front of it, I don't know. It also has, okay, it's not exactly one because there's some cable, some wires down here, which I believe your typical fire hose does not have anything like that. What else? Other than that, yeah, it's like made out of metal and probably plastic apparently. Sorry, rubber. Maybe there's some plastic somewhere. But I see a lot of stuff apparently made out of metal. The hose itself at the back is, I would guess, rubber. What else? I don't know, yeah. I think that's it for the description. It's just a fire hose. Let's move on to the analysis. For the analysis, for this critique, I'll be considering 8 elements of art: points, lines, shapes, forms, space, texture, color, and value. And let's begin with points. So let's see, do you see any points here on the med gun? I mean, it's fine if there is none. And also, sometimes it can be, especially if you know all the elements, sometimes it can be confusing. Is that a point, but that's also value, that's also, or value or texture or stuff. I have been like trying to just choose one of those usually, but you know, I was thinking maybe I'll try to just consider them as, let's say, on different dimensions, let's call it. Maybe that's a good way to analyze this kind of stuff, and I wanna try it like that from default next critiques. And I don't think I see any points whatsoever regardless. There were some details, but I don't think I have seen points per se there. Well, there's one here maybe, at the very tip of it, it's a white one, at the tip of the hose. And what else? On some angles you got stuff like this, a very faint light there. Can we call that a point? I don't know. I think it's thick enough to call a shape. And yeah, and the rest we would have to like zoom in, I think, to maybe find another 1 point. But let's respect the author's presentation, just look at things the way they are right now, in game, instead of going through a software, because if you do that you can, you know, see through different angles, but that's a different kind of experience. What else? that's it for points, then just like this white one, the tip of the hose. Let's talk about lines. 1442, there is some, I often say that there are some parts in 3D that they avoid using lines. For example, here the handle, the bottom handle of the Medi gun. It's we can notice two sides of it, but no line connecting them. You just notice them through other means. So let's see if I can find actually any lines. Perhaps you can say there is like a line here at the exit of the hose. So a very faint white one with some very small thickness to it. If it was last week or on previous critiques, I would probably just say, oh, it's not a line, it's another element of art. But yeah, from now on, as I said, I want to try to consider them both when applicable, but simply on like different dimensions, let's say. So I think it's a way to not make it confusing for anybody, including myself. What else for lines? So this is a good example here. We have this sort of very faint, also gray line here on the red part. I'm gonna also talk about it for texture, definitely. But where is it there? I would say it has a lot of irregularity to the thickness of it, especially on this one. But it's also gray. But it is gray, like I said. And I don't know. Yeah, sure. Any other line that I can make out here? I don't know if on the upper handle of it there's some, or just my imagination. Maybe not. And finally I see some very faint white ones on the cable of the hose, on the back part of it, that I'm gonna also again talk about it for textures. But yeah, so there's just like a few parts with lines, right? We had like white ones, grey ones, and this white one here. I think that's it. The rest, I don't think I see any others. So, okay, so let's move on to the elements of shapes. So now things get interesting. 1442 art. So for shape, by the way, shapes is always 2D, forms is always 3D in these kinds of critiques, analysis. So for shapes, for example, we have stuff like, and since this is a 3D object, different angles give you different shapes. So for example, through this angle, we see like a circular shape in the middle, right, with the handle on the bottom, but through this angle, it's something different, completely different. It's this very like elongated shape, still with the protuberance part here for the handle, and another one for the other handle. Thin shapes for the wires, like very thin, you know, line-like, wire-like shapes. What else? A bunch of like rectangular ones for these shapes, for these details on this part of the Medi gun. On some angles, on some other angles, it gets like this sort of bunch of arcs, angled shapes, arc-shaped things, let's say. I don't know. What else for shapes? A circular one on a number of details on this part here. They get like a bit oval, depending on the angle, but still are there. Also, what else? We have like the handles with the upper handle has its very unique shape with its like some sort of lever. The bottom one, I did mention, it has like a protruding shape, and basically, it also has a slightly tip on it to help with the grip, I would guess. Other than that, rectangular here on this part, alongside I already mentioned elongated, but I guess I can just separate like a rectangle for the cable on these angles. On other ones, yeah, look at this, on this one it gets like a hexagon, it becomes a hexagon, cool, right? What else? And like on this one, this would be like if this was perfectly smooth, it would be an oblong through this angle. Another similar ones to it. Being like with these straight parts of it makes it what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a octagon. Yeah, it's not irregular octagon. Any other shape for me to talk about here? I already mentioned circular, the bunch of rectangles, and here this kind of bunch of arcs. What else? I don't know. Also here I guess some squarish thing. Squarish. And I think that's it in general. For shapes, remember, 2D. I got a bunch of rectangles here also from different sizes, which again become kind of like arced shapes in other angles. Yeah, sure, whatever. Now let's talk about forms, because now things might be a bit more intuitive. For forms here we have like a bunch of cylindrical like forms. We have the cable, we have all this part in front of it, so there's a lot of it there. The very tip of it's a bit of that also. The bottom handle has a kind of a cube-like form to it, but with the tip at the bottom, so it's not exactly a cube. It has some detail to it. The upper handle has some very unique forms to it. Again, it's like some sort of lever. So yeah, sure, let's call it the forms of a lever. Don't think, maybe I have also described that for shapes. What else other than that? Again, thin wires for the wires. For the red part of the med gun, it's not sure it's fair to call this a block. It's kind of a... It is like a polyhedric figure, right? How many? If it was a die, how many sizes would it have? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I don't know. It's kind of hard to make out. Well, anyway, yeah, it has like its unique geometrical form here on the red part, which is not exactly like a cube, a block, but you know. Speaking of it, there's this part is a bit cubic, a bit blocky before this cylindrical part. And other than that, I think that's it. And also, we're gonna talk about space, like right now, but the front of it is kind of a hollow cylinder, right? So let's talk now about the element of space, because that makes the whole sense. So yeah, we have this hole, this gap on the front part of it, goes to a certain amount of the extent of the med gun. Other than that, you have like a bunch of tightness around the wires, because they're very close to the med gun. Some amount of space here also between the lever and the med gun because of the sizes of it. And other than that, then it starts to get expensive, then it's stuff like, at most there's stuff like the underside grip part thing and the rest of the med gun, so unlike this, there is a very abundant space between those. And after that it's just like expensive, the med gun in its background. So that's it for the element of space. And I didn't mention, but also some tight parts here on the very junction part of the lever, of the upper handle and the red part. So that's it for space. Let's talk about texture, because I mentioned that before. So texture are about the different surfaces of parts of the artwork. So for example, before I talked about these gray lines, I'm gonna also say that this part here, it gives off a kind of faded, scraped off paint texture a bit to it. Speaking of scraped off, like this parts here on the cable of the med gun, the back part, I guess it's a bit of a scratch, it has some sort of scratch texture to it, or slightly like scraped off. I don't know, it's probably from wear and tear, right? Stuff like that for texture. What else? We have all these like different crevices and elevations on many details of, especially this back part of the Medi gun, right? So kind of not. I don't think folded texture is a good way to describe it. It's I don't know. Layered, let's say layered. I think we have some sort of layered texture here. I think it's a good way to say it. What else for textures? I did mention the script of painting. The rest is mostly textureless, I think. And I guess there's like this very tip of the the duct tape or something. I guess it gives like this kind of fun. Not sure if it's right to call this a texture or form, but yeah, there's like this little tab here. Well, if I ignore the little tab thing, I'm not sure. Maybe it's better to communicate, analyze as a form, and then actually, like, no. The question is there a texture there? In my own words, in a different dimension or something. If it would be a texture, I guess, yeah, I guess we can also say it's a texture. It's I don't know the proper wording for this. In English, I know in Portuguese. It's kind of like unglued, let's say. There's like a little tab here, a little edge to it. I think we can also say it's a texture. Since it's so close to the surface, it's a small detail, I think. Well, other than all that, any other texture here? I think, not sure I saw it, but I think there might be some sort of pattern texture inside the Medi gun. It's kind of hard to see though. I don't know. Maybe there is. And I think that's it for textures. There is not too much stuff, right? So, with that said, let's move on to color. Color is gonna be easy for this one. We have mostly like shades of black and gray, and there is the red on the middle part of it, and I guess some yellows, one of the wires. The other is, I think it's gray also, or red. No, I think it's red. The gray is from the shadows. Yeah, so like black on the back part, on the cable at the back, on the... Is there a better term than cable? I don't know. Whatever. On the hose. And I guess also on the underside handle here and the duct tape on the front part. Other than that, then there is the tip of the hose with a bunch of gray on this blocky part with a bunch of gray, shades of gray, and also the upper side handle. Again, it's some darker gray. Not sure if I would call this a black or a gray, but whatever. This part connected to the red ones are in shades of gray, definitely, and this all detailed part, as I call the layer texture, also shades of gray. And yeah, and then there's the red part on this thing here, and as I said, and then a yellow and a red wire. Not much to talk about. And finally, all we have left is the element of value to look upon here. All about light and darkness, brightness and shadiness. So through many angles we see light being reflected on it, very noticeable. Like on this one, you can see it very well reflected. Even like gray parts, black parts, like the duct tape. All that's pretty noticeable. How much it shines. I wouldn't call it flashy, like if we're talking about candela, the intensity of light. I wouldn't describe it as flashy, but it's still noticeably bright on a number of angles here. This one also, you can see something like that on the back part of the hose. And other than that, do I see shades anywhere, maybe? Okay, I guess here and down there, on the underside of the handle, there is a bit of a shader part to it. Yeah, on this here, okay. Again, a bit of a shader, but again, not that dark. It's like mild darkness there, I guess. Common 1440 short. I think that's it, and there's not much else to say, I guess, because the brightness is kind of like all around the weapon through the many angles. There is no specific point where it sticks, On here, like we have it on the side part, but on other angles, here's on the handle itself, handle. In here it's on the red part a little more, and here it's on the front part, so you know, depends a lot on the angles, and it's hard to find a rule there, let's say. And for the shadiness, there's the stuff. I guess there's also some shadiness here between the red part and the part on the back. I'm not sure if there's more than that. So yeah, like 2 points of notably darkness, shadiness, a bunch of spread around in very different ways, brightness, and none of them are too intense. So yeah, I think that's it. And just in case on angles that we do not see this intense brightness, it's kind of whatever, you know. It's not exactly dark, but not bright either. So you know, although I think we can always see at least some light being reflected, right? So that's interesting to notice, I guess. So but anyway, I think that's it for the analysis. Let's move on to the interpretation now. Let's interpret the creative vision behind this art. The Mad Gun. First things first, let's start with the basics. If this was designed as a weapon for the Medic 1442. We all know that's how it works, and I'm gonna interpret that they had that in mind when they designed this gun. They didn't just steal it from another game, you know, got it from somewhere else. Other than that, what else that I interpret? Well, I talked a lot about fire hose, but I interpret that as the creative vision here. Maybe actually, so many similarities, and the way it works in game also, you know, the medic activates and then our being of healing energies, I guess, starts healing people. It's good to be inspired by a fire hose. No, okay, let's calm down. Okay, maybe it looks a lot like a fire hose and stuff like that, but the real question is, was that a part of the creative vision? That's the important part here. And because like we don't see much of that idea in general, you know, the medic was not a fireman or anything. So yeah, also there's stuff like the name, the Medi gun. So yeah, so I don't know. Okay, we could say they maybe took some inspiration from fire hoses, but I don't think it was necessarily in their vision to make it, to communicate that, to be something like that, you know, because that's different, to be inspired by something and to be a reference to something. And I don't think they have gotten that far to the point of wanting this to be a fire hose, think of fire hose. No, I think they just cared about some parts of the design of fire hoses. That's how I interpret it, at least. Again, because we don't see that idea anywhere else, you know, and I don't know. So in any case, but definitely could have been inspired by, I would guess. Okay, so if I'm not gonna add the idea of a fire hose as part of the vision, then what else? I guess I'm gonna add the idea that this is supposed to be some sort of sci-fi thingamajigga, because we have stuff like the wires, you know, we know how this works. This is technically a sci-fi gun, you know, it shoots healing. How does that even work? You know, it's some sort of sci-fi. And with stuff like the wires, and also if you read the comics, the medic is able to, how do you say, he's kind of a genius, let's say. He has done some feats. He basically has once made a guy live inside of a pumpkin. There is the expiration date update where he works with the engineers, so he knows some stuff of technology. He's not just a physician, as you could expect. The Mad Gun is his invention after all. So yeah, considering that stuff, I do believe like the idea of something somewhat sci-fi was part of their vision. Also, if you think even a bit deeper on Team Fortress 2 lore, there's even the idea of the Australian, and how that in Australia the technology has advanced like several years in front of the rest of the world. That's why we have teleporters in Team Fortress 2, according to lores, because in Australia the Australian is what propelled their civilization to these new levels, let's say. So yeah, so we have like a lot of stuff that I think could support that interpretation. And anything else for the creative vision here? So Apple for the Medi, for Team Fortress 2, Medi gun and how it works in game. As I already said, the idea of sci-fi. What else? We can think a little bit about gameplay, the way the medic heals people, he just shoots at it and there's a beam that connects and starts healing people. That's like cool. Again, I even see some similarities with a fire hose. Imagine that's water, but in any case, then it's a string of. There's a string of healing, and you could imagine a string of water. But again, I think it makes more sense just to believe that the design was inspired by on some parts. In any case, there is the Uber, for example, we all know and love. But I don't think I see that as part of the Medi gun. Because how does the Uber work in game visually? Your whole body and the body of your patient starts glowing. Well, that's the stock one. Okay, there are other ones. The Kritzkrieg, the Weapelgains crits. Thanks for the follow, Ava Kenley. Hello. On the Kritzkrieg, your weapon starts glimmering. On the Quick Fix, some particles start emanating from you, stuff like that. So yeah, all of that, I don't see that as tied to the Medi gun itself. So I don't know. Sorry for bothering you during your stream. Do you need an artwork for your channel? Not at the moment, but thank you for the offer. So yeah, okay. I don't know if we're gonna reach any other reasonable interpretation here for the creative vision. I don't know if there is much to talk about here. I really wanted to add the idea of a fire hose, but I would need at least something to consider that was part of their vision, and I don't think I can think about anything like that in lore or whatever. There's the medic's personality, the past. I've read all the comics, but man, I don't know. I already mentioned something sci-fi, it heals people. Go for the medic. You know what? Let's just keep it simple. Hey, well, I do custom art for streamers and gamers. Would you like to take a look at some of my work? Not at the moment. So, okay. Yeah, so let's do it something like this. I think it's nice to have at least like 3 ideas for the creative vision. And I'm thinking something like, let's just think about the game mechanics of the idea that when you activate this, a string of healing comes and you just keep healing people. So let's just say something like that. I think part of the vision was that this gun would work with this constant string of healing, constant string of something. In our case, is healing energies or something. Some sort of a device that works like that, because not necessarily all weapons in TF2, could have that, could make sense with that in mind. Some would look weird, So yeah, let's keep it like that. And so I think that's fine. I don't know if I can reach any other reasonable ideas here for the interpretation. So yeah, just to recap. So Medi gun for Team Fortress 2. That's the name. The name says it all. Something sci-fi, something with some amount of sci-fi to it. And finally, alright, no worries, thank you for understanding. And enjoy. Have a good day. And finally, the idea that this should work with the game mechanic of a constant stream of healing. So those are the three ideas for the creative vision here. So let's move on to the judgment step. For the judgment step, I'm gonna be taking into account 6 principles of art to base my judgment here. Those will be movement, unity/variety, contrast, emphasis, balance, and proportion. And I usually like to begin with movement, which, by the way, has nothing to do with animations. Movement is all about how a work of art can move your eyes, guide your eyes in some sort of path or direction. And for the Medi gun, let's see. I have a number of stuff like that. I see, for example, on the very lengthy cable here, on this cable is very kind of weird, right? Because you don't see something like that in game, but whatever. I'm gonna consider it for this presentation, for this depiction of the Medi gun, since it's an official one. So yeah, there's like the length of this, and also the use of color and value here. I think that helped me to just guide my eyes through the extent of it. In the use of also shapes and forms. So other than that, something a bit similar with the front part of the Medi gun, although in here is more with the element of texture and forms. Again, I did mention some layer texture back here. I could have said something similar here also. So yeah, like this like layered textures, and also the way that they have done color and value again. The altercation of black and gray and the continuity of those colors, especially the gray, I guess. All of that I think helped me, and the forms and shapes again. All of that I think helped me. I also move my eyes a little bit to the front of it, to the extent of this front part of it. And also I was thinking here, the upper handle kinda has some sort of thing going on there also to me. It's how should I say this? It's again forms and shapes, but in this case it's like the angle that it is, because if it was like perpendicular to the Medi gun, I don't think I would have this effect, but since it's like slightly angled, I see kind of some sort of a slope, you know, especially through I said shapes and forms. The way this space here, making it hollow on this part, I think makes it a little bit harder for me, but I think it's still there. And the color is also helping, again, continuity on the dark shade of gray. I believe it's a dark gray, I don't know. So those are the parts mostly that I see movements. There are naturally other ones, smaller ones, but those are the most prominent to me. So does any of that help with the idea of a gun for the medic, 1442? A gun for the medic. Okay, like... Well, I suppose if we're talking about the principle of movement here, if we're looking at the length of this front part, especially in the context of Team Fortress 2, maybe we could think about and compare that to the, what was it? Barrels. Was it barrels or cylinders? The front part of the gun. Basically, like on the revolver, the longer part of the gun. I think it's the barrel, if my terminology is correct. So anyway, kind of has some similarities to the geometry design of the barrels of guns, you know? So that maybe is a good enough argument. To convey that this is a gun, you know? Not even saying a gun for the medic, just a gun. I don't know. think it's like not good enough. I don't know. I'm thinking here. Well, there are other things with similar geometry, right? But how many? Then start to thinking how many. There are fire hoses, obviously, as I've been saying. But what else necessarily? You know? I don't know. Maybe like this geometry is very recognizable for guns. Not sure what other uses we would have. There's stuff like Canons, I think, or maybe we would have to go a little bit far. There are probably some sort of utensil or equipment that has this sort of design trait on some part or another, but I don't know. It's still somewhat close to a gun, but the real question is it close enough? I don't know, man. Well, okay, I didn't want to say it because I think it's a minor one, but technically also I see a little bit of the principle of movement on their part trigger here. It's just like a small one, I would say, not that much. But I think it's a bit there. With the help from shapes and forms also. In this case, the little angled parts help a bit. And in here, this I think fits better to the grip of a gun. So maybe both together I think can work. Maybe this structure geometry with similarities to barrels of guns, and the bottom part, the handle, with similarities to the grips of gun. Maybe that can help convey that this is a gun. Good enough to convey that. I believe so. I think both together. Yeah. If I was just considering this front part here, I really want to do some sort of research on what kinds of equipment could have this sort of geometry, or if we could tie it easily to guns and fire hoses, I guess. Guns, cannons, fire hoses, whatever. But with the underside handle thing, the grip, I think we have a more solid argument. Okay, what about the idea of something sci-fi? Here I think it's kinda meh. Again, fire hoses. Are fire hoses sci-fi? I don't think so. And the grip here I don't think is good enough for that. Let me see, I don't know, yeah, sure. Not helping with the idea of something sci-fi. And finally, what about the idea of something that shoots a constant stream of healing in our case? So something that a design that fits with that. So through movement, okay. Through movement we see the extent of the tip of the hose, and also we see the lever. Okay, sure. Okay, from the tip of the gun, there comes the string of healing. So is movement helping us to look at that? I kinda wanted to focus more on the opening, right? But I don't know, maybe it is good enough with this idea, especially through the principle of movement, with this idea of communicating that it propels something. So whether it's constant or not, I don't think it's communicated visually. But maybe with this idea of the lever, this idea of you opened it, you closed it, you open it, you close it. Maybe we should think it like that. But I would say that just this idea of ejecting something, I think it's maybe it may work as long as there's not something that communicates some sort of stop, I guess, because it has to be constant, you know. So I guess the important part is basically, does it have a cylinder of bullets, you know? If there's a cylinder of bullets, then it's gonna stop eventually, so that goes completely against the game design of it. But I don't see anything like that, let alone from the principle of movement, so I will say it's helping convey that it shoots some constant string of something. At least it ejects something. Those are my ideas. So, okay, let's move on to another principle. Let's talk about unity/variety. Unity, which is all about like how different parts of the arc can look like they're working together in one way or another. And variety, which is the opposite of that. So, variety is easier to think about just by the name, you know, how much different stuff. So, for example, a good example of variety here is the unique shapes and forms and even colors of the wires here. With the yellow of the wire, it's pretty unique, the only part that's yellow on the whole art here. And if you wanted to look at unity, many ways is for you to find it. You can think about continuity, repetition, patterns, proximity, all that stuff are examples of unity. For example, the continuity of colors and the value on the back part of the cable, not the cable, on this back part of the hose. And there's stuff like proximity between the lines, the white lines and the scraped textures and the hose, which can kind of communicate that they were some sort of star, you know, maybe the hose was used and that's what caused the, especially for the textures, that's what causes this texture to be like that, you know, that kind of stuff is how Unity works. We could think about the forms and space here, the cylindrical and even shapes in this case. The long, somewhat elongated shapes and forms with the hollow inside, the hollow space inside of that can kind of communicate some sort of function that they're working together. It's not like a cylinder and then you gotta shoot something through somewhere else, you know. It's like the whatever possibly shoot, you know. It's like they are working together for the same purpose, stuff like that, that you're gonna try to look at. It could be just things. And also the red. By the way, the red on the red part and other source of variety, I guess. But just simply the repetition of the bunch of a lot of gray and black. That's another example of unity. Even if you don't say, that's for, I don't know, for aesthetic purposes or whatever. You don't need to figure out what is the purpose, but you know, that's why it's about the parts of the art looking like they work together. You know, you don't need to think about what are they working together for. In any case, and if any of that helped convey this is a gun for the Medi 1442. So I guess the grip here, what do you call it? The handle, sorry, the handle, the grip here, it has some variety to it because this shapes and forms to it. We don't see anything exactly like it anywhere else on the art, so there's some variety there, and with the unity from the front part, stuff like I said on shapes, forms, and space. But also stuff like the repetition, especially shapes, that's stuff that I said for shapes, forms, and space, even though there's other sources of unity there. But I think that again helps convey that this is a gun, and you know what, I just thought of something. So this conveys that it is a gun. What about a Medi gun? Well, there's the fact that only the Medi Content Force Shoe has the healing, you know, the healing being the Mad guns, you know, but the game mechanics. If you don't think of the visuals, just on the game mechanics, then only the Medi Content Force Shoe has the healing being. So I think by that logic, if the vision is accomplished on the front of the idea of a constant stream of healing, then by that logic, I think we can also say that we are accomplishing the idea of a medic gun, you know, because they are so close to that idea. Although I would still say it's important for this to be a gun, which, you know, I don't know how well a gun is something that shoots a constant stream of something. Kind of everything's very close together, right? But whatever. Yeah. Anyway, but still. When it comes to that part of a design of a constant string of healing or something, I think that also helps with the idea of the Medi because of the exclusivity of that game mechanic of the Med being. Other classes have healing, you know, the heavy can throw you food and stuff, but I'm thinking specifically on the Med being, on the healing being. But anyway, yeah, but as I was saying, so variety for the grip I think helps convey, and with the other part I think helps convey, this is a gun, and not a fire hose, basically. What else? What about the principle, oh sorry, what about the idea of something sci-fi? Here is it, right? Because there's variety on the wires, and so that's basically that tells there's some sort of technology going on here, right? There's something electrical working on here. This is not just a fire hose. Well, we already know this is just not a fire hose. It's a gun, but it's not just a gun. This is not just a gun and not just a fire hose. There is also some electricity inside it, because what would that gun need electricity for, or a fire hose? So that's, I think, where the sci-fi shenanigans start coming into factor here. Even though it's kind of subtle, right? It's just like some wires. Okay, so there's electricity in it, but I think it's good enough, I would say. I think it's good enough to convey just this idea, because, as I said, what would a fire hose need electricity for? Usually, from what I know, they use water pressure to shoot the water, and guns usually I think also don't use electricity, except some specific ones, tasers and whatnot. But in this case, since it doesn't seem to me it doesn't seem to be anything specific that you already think of electricity, I do believe we can say there's something sci-fi going on with electricity on this. At least my thoughts here. And so, and then again, there's variety here. If there was like wires everywhere, then we would maybe, I don't know if we would there would be unity, but I don't know if we would accomplish the same thing. But in this case, I think it's helping. And finally, again, the idea of a constant stream of healing. So again, I mentioned, so again, there is the unity on the shapes and forms of the exiting part here in the space. And so again, that's where the healing being comes from. So far so good. And that means, and yeah, now the only thing that would be necessary is to make sure it's a constant stream, to tie to the mechanic. And again, I don't think I see anything that communicates a stop. It's not like a shotgun that you have to shoot and reload, I think it's fine. If anything, the unity on the cables, as I said before, the back part, could communicate that whatever resource this uses comes from somewhere else. And so you just turn it on. We don't know where it comes from, right? It comes from the medic's backpack. And can I see it real quick? Yeah, connected back here. So, this is not a backpack. This is like a sci-fi electric thingamajigga. So, but in any case, show stock items. But I think this idea of this part here connecting to somewhere else could help convey that you are using a resource from a stock instead of loading bullets in a chamber, for example. And I think makes it easier to tie to the idea of a constant stream of whatever you're shooting. In our case, healing beings, I guess. And yeah, accomplish through unity/variety. What about the principle of contrast? So, how about the differences in the artwork and how much do they impact? We could talk a lot about, I don't know, where do you see the most contrast here? I think on the middle part of the Medi in contrast with the rest, because not only we have the red, but we have the unique handle, we have with its unique shapes and forms. We have the cables also, so like this middle part of the Medi, I see a lot of contrast with it, and the tips, the back and the front. So yeah, that's where I see contrast through color, through shapes and forms, through space, I guess, also. the handle has this hollow part to it. Empty part, whatever you wanna call it. Technically the lines help a bit, you know, because these gray lines, we don't see it on the other ones, so you know, there's line here, there's not line on the other ones. What else? Yeah, okay, mostly those elements. So does it help convey and something of a gun for the medic, 1442? In here I think not, because we're constructing this whole thing in the middle with the rest, and we have like the back part of the cable, we have the front part with the grip, the underside handle, and the barrel, let's say, of the gun. But of those together, I don't think communicate a gun this time, because now we're bundling them together, you know. I don't know. And especially when it comes to the contrasts. You know. And the middle part, I don't think says anything about the medic or the... What do you say it? Or the organs. Again, it's just like there's the lever. It's... okay, I guess there's the game mechanic that... that when you hit someone with the med gun, you just like turn it on, and then it starts healing. So it's kind of like you pull the lever. But the thing is, if someone moves far away from you, then it turns off automatically. So it's not perfectly tied to the game mechanics, you know, because they chose that game design principle. And that's kind of important, because if you're like healing, you click on someone, start healing, they go away. If someone comes in their place, you have to click on them again. And so there is not a perfect match to the way, to what you did and how the character acts, you know. They did it in a way that I think it's better for gameplay, which is fine. But one of the consequences of that is that I don't see just the lever here, just there being some contrast with the other stuff. I don't think that's helping convey that this is a medic weapon. Now that I think about it, also there is the fact that the medic, everything's like connecting to each other. But I did mention that the medic has some ability to make sci-fi stuff. Let's say he has built this. So I wonder if like the wire and stuff like that can help communicate this from the medic. Maybe not. I think that's kind of a bit of a stretch. I think it's fine to interpret that, you know, for sci-fi, considering the comics and stuff. But just to say that there's something sci-fi here, so it must be from the medic, I think that's too far. Because it could be from the engineer, if anything, you know. The engineer also uses teleporters, which is sci-fi, so yeah. So anyway, all that's to say that for contrast, I don't think I see anything helping convey this is a gun for the medic easily. Only if you take the logic path. Oh, there is some wires, electricity. Oh, the medic can do sci-fi stuff. But you know, now if it has to go through that whole chain of thought and overthinking, I don't think that's what we're looking for here. We're looking for visually communicating stuff, not being a seed for a bunch of conjectures or whatever. Even if they have some logic to them. Anyway, what about, okay, contrast is not helping convey this gun for the medic. What about the idea of something sci-fi? Okay, no, maybe, yeah. Because I think I mentioned it for variety, but I think the cables are also helping bring contrast here between the more, let's say, boring parts in the middle of it. So we notice the wires, that makes us think of sci-fi. Okay, so it's working for that though, the contrast. And finally, what about this idea of a gun that shoots a constant string of something? Through contrast, the only thing that we would have here is like kind of the upper handle, right? But does it convey that it's something that shoots a constant string or something? I don't know, it's like a lever. You could use levers for other things, you know. We would have to, if you look at the whole of it, then you get it. But if just through contrast separating those parts, I don't think that communicates it easily. So it just communicates that there's some sort of lever on this gun. Could be something like, oh, mode. Could be like Mercy from Overwatch, which has like healing mode and damaging mode or something. I don't know. But yeah, neither has anything to do with the constant string of being healing beings. At least that's how I see it. I don't think it's helping with that part of the vision. What about the idea? Sorry, the principle of emphasis. How about the artwork there being some sort of focal point which keeps our eyes there, stuff like that. So I don't know. Let me reset my eyes a bit. Let's see. Emphasis. Emphasis. I think at the tip of it, that's where I see the most. To elements of space, to the elements of space is notable. I think lines is helping a bit, as I said. Also, this white line street. What else? There's some amount of contrast. To me, the greatest contrast, as I said, is like the middle with the rest. But there's also some amount of contrast with the like flat parts of the flattish, let's say, parts of the exit and the other parts of the tip here of the Medi gun. So farms there, one side of it and the other facet of it, you know, through farms. Even on some angles through shapes, like this one I think also, but I don't know. Yeah, so from all of that I see the exit of the Medi gun. To me it's the source of emphasis. And the rest like follows, it's kind of like pretty repetitive in a number of stuff, you know. It's kind of like it has roughly similar-ish forms and shapes on many parts of it, exceptions being the handles and the wires, for example. But those are a bit, I don't know, also whatever, you know, there's not that much to them because there's the use of color and there's not much detail, not much variety to them. Although the wires are a source of variety, they're still just like a yellow and a red wire, and there's not much to them. They're small, and so because of all that, I think to me the emphasis lies on the very exit of the Medi gun. So okay, so if that's emphasis, does it help in one way or another, or with the idea of a gun for the medic? Okay, so I did mention that the geometry. I was mentioning before how the geometry has similarities to the geometry and designs of the barrels of guns, and I wonder if now we could have reach a similar logic with the tip of it and, for example, muzzles of guns. Could we go there? Maybe that's a bit too much now, because now I think there are more stuff with openings, you know, than just like long tubes in their design, long tubes with openings. You know, this could be a shower or something. What's the name of it? You know, the device that shoots water when you're in the shower and I don't know. Anyway, for example, so there are some similarities to that. So I don't think. And it doesn't look exactly like a muzzle of a gun anyway, so I don't think the emphasis is helping convey this is a gun, let alone for the medic. Necessarily, you know. What else? What about the idea of something sci-fi? Something sci-fi? No, right, because as I said, like the metal thing in the shower, the fire hoses, they have somewhat of similar design to this. Again, it's some guns. So to say this is sci-fi, I think it's quite a stretch. I don't see it. And finally, what about the idea of a constant string of something? Now maybe we're getting somewhere, because again, this is where the string of something could come from. I think a design like this would fit well with that functionality. And once again, we would just need to think about a continuous stream of it to tie it better to the mechanic. So again, is there any... Does it look visually that the string stops for whatever reason? For example, if there was a cylinder in this, like a gun, then you would expect it to run out of bullets eventually, but in here, I don't think there's anything like that. There could be, I don't know, something that closes off or whatever in case it overheats. Maybe, you know, some example from the top of my head of a design like that. A bit of a whimsical design maybe, but still. But yeah, I don't think we see anything that says that it stops shooting for some reason. And yeah. Also, I wonder if I should go the other way around and try to look for ways to say that it's a constant flow of something. But I don't know. I guess both work at the end of the day. Either trying to find something that communicates stopping to the flow of whatever. Either that, or looking for something that communicates continuity. It's just that it's kind of hard to me to find something that would communicate continuity here necessarily in the shooting. We would have to use a bit of our imagination, I think. So just and our imagination is not our eyes here. So we're trying to judge what we see, and yeah. In this case. So yeah, anyway, that's just say that, but I think it's good enough for the idea of a constant stream or something. I think it is, personally. Okay, so that's it for emphasis. What about balance? The principle of balance is all about states, something that looks in equilibrium or tensioned, stuff like that, or with lack of any of those. So let's see here. Visually speaking, I think everything is balanced. The classics are 1442. Only on specific points, usually like on maps, I think it's where we are more likely to see something visually unbalanced or tension somewhere. In here, it's just whatever. Everything looks solid, everything looks firm, you know, well attached to me, stuff like that. And is there a problem with my internet connection? Let's wait a little bit, see if I get back to stream. YouTube does not have to worry about that, but then again, you lose the live factor. You can't ask me questions if you are just watching YouTube. So you know, do watch my stream as well. Are we reconnecting? Because I don't want to take this to take too long. I think we are. Oh, there you go. Okay, so where was I? Constant stream, balance. Okay, yeah, so balance. Everything's like firm, stable. I don't see any source of visual unbalance. And there could be tension, but I also don't see it anywhere. It's like a pretty. I already said right, firm. The Medi gun. The closest I could think of is the wires, but even the wires, it's just like they're not falling, they're not pulling anything, they're not being pulled, they're not. Okay. I guess the fact that they are kind of curved communicates a very minimal amount of tension, I guess. It's the kind of stuff like if this wire was left like this for 1,000 years, maybe eventually it would break. Because it's not perfectly straight, you know. I think that's like the best I can get. I wasn't even expecting to find some sort of tension here, but yeah, I suppose like the fact that the wires are kind of bent communicates some very minute tension to me. Cool. Okay, does any of that help convey that this is a gun for the medic? Nah, not really. Like, okay, everything is stable and firm. Most things are stable and firm and in visual equilibrium. Cool, but so what, you know? That's not what Team Fortress 2 or Medics or the Medic or guns are about, so yeah, whatever. What about the idea of something sci-fi? Well, now you probably know what I'm going to say, but like there's the wires, and I mentioned before that the wires like are something that it's what it's bringing sci-fi to this gun to me, and as I mentioned, there is some very minute tension there, just because they're not perfectly straight, they're a bit curved, you know. And so yeah, the principle of balance is helping a bit to focus on that, to bring, let's not say focus, to make us notice that. So yeah, helping. And what about the idea of a constant string of whatever, human beings in our case? So could be out something else. I think it would be good enough, but whatever. So like everything being, most things being in equilibrium with all tension, just a small tension on the wires, well, whatever, right? Who cares? Don't think that communicates a constant string of anything or whatever. Yeah. And that's it for the principle of balance. So the last one is the principle of proportion, which is all about different sizes of parts of the artwork. How do they relate, and how does that help or not with the vision? So what I usually like to do is try to place things broadly in scales, to try to say, oh, this is bigger than this and this is bigger than that, you know. I say it broadly because things can get out of hand if you try to be very precise about it. And I do that, and I also look for very notable things with notable dimensions, because sometimes just saying this is bigger or smaller I don't think is good enough. Sometimes I always mention the payload, the rails example. Because on payload maps you got like the rails, which technically are somewhat small, but they are long, they go through the whole map, you know. So when I critique those payload maps before, those were an example of that kind of stuff, of something with very notable dimensions. So, but for the Medi gun, what do I see here? If we're gonna place things in scales, I don't know. I'm guessing like the exit part here, the front part, is gonna be one of the biggest ones. That and the cable, the part on the back. I think I would place those like roughly in the same scale. After that, I'm guessing the middle part, the red part, and after that the upper and the lower handles, and smaller than those, the wires. Yes, I would do it like that. And also for notable dimensions, the cable part at the back, you know, because it's very long. And that's it. I think nothing else calls my attention. So, does any of that help convey? This is a weapon for the medic, for the shoe. True proportion, I don't think so. Because like the front part, I placed it in a different scale than the handle, so I don't think that logic of goes here that I said before for movement. And the rest is just whatever, you know. What about the idea of something sci-fi? Here I think the proportion is helping, because the wires are kind of the smallest things here as I see it, and the only other thing that I could maybe compare is the duct tape on the front part, but I'm kind of considering the duct tape as a part, as a very as a whole with the tube, the barrel of this gun, as I see it, you know. And even then, I think it's still bigger enough than the wires. My argument here is that the wires being that small, that's noticeable, calls some attention to them, ironically perhaps because it being smallest, but the important part I think is having a unique size, unique scale, with and everything on that scale communicating the same thing, something together. In this case, something sci-fi, because it's the only wire there, and as I said before, I see the wire communicating sci-fi here in this gun. So yeah, and finally, what about the idea of something that shoots a constant string of something? In this case, I think the proportion is helping also, because I grouped in the same scale the exit part, the barrel, and the cable at the back. And I think both can be tied to this idea of you know, as I said before, if you tie this to a source of, to the stock of some resource, so that's where their source comes from, and the front part's what's shooting it. So I think it somewhat helps convey this idea of tied well. You know, again, compare that to a gun with a cylinder where you can kind of count the bullets or estimate when the gun is gonna stop shooting, especially if you see it in action. So yeah, and the important part, why is that for proportion? It's because they are on the same scale, and both of those I believe are kind of communicating the same thing. Because this middle part here, through principles, through elements of shapes and forms, color, a bit of texture. Those things I think are what is helping convey this idea to me. Because the middle one has some kind of fatter, let's say, shapes and forms, which I think could communicate some sort of stop to the flow of things, but at the same time it's a smaller part, so I didn't group it on the same scale to me, the red part. And the other stuffs are either on other different scales. So being on the same scale, just the outside, the ejecting part and the cable behind, I think is helping convey that part of the vision. So I think that's it. We have covered our principles, and I believe, from what I remember, all parts of the vision were communicated, conveyed in one way or another. So the only conclusion for me is that this is a successful work of art. Congrats, Valve! I think you pulled it off. I personally didn't expect the idea of sci-fi here again. I talked about that for the Ponson, the melter before, but I guess that I also interpret that as that idea for the design of the Medi, at least the Medi gun. And yeah, and there's the wire there. Also wasn't expecting I didn't realize there was this grip parting on the Med gun, and as I've said, I think that totally helps conveying this as a gun. And as I said, there's all this stuff that I said that I think to me helps convey that this shoots a constant string or something. And because, again, I already said of this, right, but because the Medic's the only class with that game mechanic of the constant string of healing, I think everything is conveyed, and all the ideas, all the parts of the vision. So yay! Thanks for tuning in to the critique today. See you next time. Bye!